This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so I think yesterday we discussed about the different types of statements. Yesterday we executed and understand how these statements will work. So we also discussed about different types of looping statements and all those things. About input-output statements going forward, when we develop the web pages, that time we use. So for now, you need to understand like this: get means output, set means if you want to set the value to a variable, that time we use set one of the property. So now, so let me open some of the programs and show you. I'm opening some of the sample programs and see in a program by seeing the statements, we're able to understand so what are the statements, why they are writing that statement, all those things. Here, when I click on programs, so I'm opening one of this program. So for now, don't bother about the structure of a program. We'll be understanding about that after discussing about the OOPS concepts, object-oriented programming concepts. So if you see the statements here, if you see here, they're allocating the memory of the type, the data type string, and they're defining one of the variable, and there is a default value assigned to that. In the same way, they define one more variable, which is integer type. In that again, they define some of the variables and assign some of the default values. And if you see here they're using the index-based for loop for I equal to 0, I less than number they will be supplying dynamically. If they supply 10, if they supply 100, system will take care and iterate those many times. And here if you see they're adding two numbers and assigning to some other number, and again they're exchanging, again assigning values, and this is arithmetic assignment, right? So internally how we need to understand Fibonacci series is equal to Fibonacci series plus comma plus, and this expression they are giving. So here we have the memory statement, we have assignment operator, we have for loop, so different statements. Already we discussed about all these types. Okay. In the same way, maybe I also gave instructions how we can execute that code. Once you execute, let's say if you supply this, what is the result you get? That also I gave here. And let me open one more program. This is one more program. Any questions? I think someone is not in mute. Yeah, B, do you have any questions? If you don't have any questions, please stay on mute by default. So here, if you see, this is one more statement. In this statement also, there is a variable, data type boolean. Is true is the variable name, and they are assigning a default value. So here they are using conditional statement, if condition, if, and they're checking for some equal to 0. Maybe this expression going forward you'll understand. And also they are using logical operator. They have two conditions, and any one of the condition is true. Finally, they are assigning this value to some true value. Because this is the conditional statement, logical operator. So those things they are using in that example. This is one more example. Here just they are doing some calculations and they are printing. Okay, so system.debug is to print the value in the debugger. So like that. So far we understood about the different statements. Now the next level, how we write a program, how we keep these statements in a program in an organized way and reuse the logic again and again. So to understand that, we have to know about the OOPS concepts, object-oriented programming concepts. As part of the OOPS concepts, you see encapsulation, abstraction, polymorphism, and also inheritance. So these are the different OOPS concepts: encapsulation, abstraction, polymorphism, inheritance. Okay, so now what is this encapsulation? What is this? So before we understand, in general, when you have a program, so far now we don't know how the program starts and ends, but let's say this is a program. So any program should be in a block. And this is one block. Maybe we bother about the syntax later. So assume that this is a program. So why we write the program? Mainly, what are the different types of elements we see in a program? So let's say one of the simple requirement. When I supply two numbers, all I need is it should add those two numbers and give the result. That's the requirement. Now, when I supply two numbers to hold the value, whatever I am supplying to hold those values, it needs memory. So for that, in the program, they define variables, right? By defining variables, memory will be allocated. Okay, and also in a program, to add two numbers, every time, right? When I supply two numbers, it should add and give the result. So that means it should it should perform one of the action called addition. Let's say I want subtraction. So that is a different action. And multiplication, we might need multiple different types of actions, right? So by taking the data whatever we supply, we also decide. So we want to only do addition or subtraction or multiplication. We only call that action, so that corresponding logic will execute and we give the result related to that. Okay. So for that we write for each operation, right? Addition, subtraction, multiplication. So we need to define an action here in the OOPS based languages. So these actions we call as methods. Okay, so method is a reusable set of statements. We keep some statements together in a method and reuse that again and again. So if you want addition, we have to define one method, add. For subtraction, one method, subtract. So that whenever you want to add, call add method. Whenever you want subtract, call subtract method. Select that. Okay, so mostly when you define a program, mainly in a program, you see variables and you see some actions. Actions are nothing but the methods. As per the OOPS concepts, we use the terminology methods. Method is a reusable set of statements. Okay, so now in a program, high level, we have variables and methods. Those elements will be there. Okay, so now encapsulation. So what is this encapsulation? How we need to understand about this? So for the definition sake, right, how we need to understand encapsulation, it holds or it binds the elements in a program together. Okay, when you say a program, so program should be enclosed through encapsulation. Suppose, for example, so when you say TV, right? So TV, inside TV, there are many different parts, right? All together, they combine and they wrap that all elements into the structure, the outside structure, whatever we see, right? It should be enclosed into that structure, right? The backside dome inside, it should cover all the elements and form a TV, right? So like that, whenever we write any logic, as a rule, the program should be enclosed through the encapsulation. This encapsulation bind all the elements in a program together and make one program. So that's the encapsulation. Okay, so it binds the elements in a program together, right? So you have to maybe understand like this. So when you have some device, internally inside the device, there are many elements will be there, but that should be wrapped into one outside panel so that without disturbing, without moving the inside parts, we can easily access that device, right? So like that. So the encapsulation will wrap all the elements in a program together and form the program structure. So that we call as encapsulation. So as part of the encapsulation, so we have class and we also have interface. We have class, we have interface. There are two types of encapsulation. So either when we write a program, the program will start either with class or interface. Then only system will recognize that we are writing a program. Okay, now first let's understand about the class, right? So class means class is like a plan. So how we need to understand? It is a plan. It is a blueprint of real world scenario. So one of the example, let's say there is a need to construct a building. Okay, so first to construct the building, so what is required? The planning, right? So we need to first get the plan of the building. How many floors in each floor? What are the rooms should be there? And all those things, we have to get the plan from the engineer. And the plan on the paper is like a class. Class also, we define the class. It's not that once we have the class, everything is happening, right? So class is a plan. So when you supply two values, by taking those two values, what it will do, right? So we need to take those two, assign to some value, some variable, add it and store in some variable. So something like that, we plan as a developer and write some set of statements and keep. Okay, so it is like the building plan on the paper is like a class. We create one class and it is just like that. But when exactly it will be coming into reality and give the results? So when you have building plan, by using the material, bricks and the cement and everything, they have to construct the building so that there is a physical existence of the building. In the same way, here class is a plan. If you want to allocate memory in a class, we define variables, we define some actions. For all those things, when system allocate memory, when you create the object, when you have a class to access the logic, whatever we write in the class, we have to create the object. If you create the object, what will happen? Whatever the variables we define, whatever the methods we define, for all those things, the system at runtime, it will allocate a memory. Let's say I have defined two variables, integer number 1 and number 2. When I create the object, that point of time, system will allocate memory to store number 1, how much memory needed. For number 2, integer type, how much memory needed. All the memory will be allocated by the system when you create the object. Then we can supply value so that that value will store into that memory system allocates. So like that. So when you have the class should have the memory. One second. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So now, so how we need to understand class is a plan. We need to use the logic. To use the logic in the class, we have to create the object. Object is like a physical existence of a building. So when you have the building, we have to supply the instructions to use the building, right? So let's say there is a lift. So we have to operate the lift. Based on what we operate, it will give the results, right? In the same way, when you have object, through object, we perform different instructions. Based on the methods, whatever we define, through that object, we call all those methods, so that that method will give the corresponding result, whatever we wrote. So like that, we have to understand. Okay, so class, we just plan it when some data is provided as input. By taking the data, what we need to do, step by step, we write logic. So when that will be really executed, when you create the object and supply that data, that time system execute and give the result. So that's the class. And before we start writing a program, okay, so let's also understand about abstraction, so I think we are good to write a program. Okay, so abstraction means it deals with the visibility of the elements in a program, right? It deals with the elements, the visibility of the elements in a program. Okay, so what are the elements we have in a program? We have variable, we have methods, right? Maybe going forward, we also discuss about constructors. So whatever the elements are there inside the program, so which kind of visibility you want to provide? So those things will be those things this abstraction will deal. So let's say if you take TV, right? For sure, we have to see the screen. We don't bother about the inside, whatever the chips and whatever they are using. Those really not needed to visible, right? Let's say I want to keep my USB pen drive, and that should be visible outside, right? Whatever we need, they will show. Whatever we don't need, they will hide, right? So like that. So when you have a class and when you have some elements in a class, which one you want to show, which one you want to hide, those things we control using abstraction. Okay, so here as part of the abstraction, we have private, we have protected, we have public, global. These are the different abstraction levels. So technically, so these things, so whatever here I have listed, we call these things as access modifiers. Okay, so this decides which element, which kind of visibility you want to provide. So here, so what is this private? So what is this protected? So that we need to understand. So now how we need to understand when you have a program, right? Private means the visibility within the program, only within that program, right? So that is private. So for example, let's take one real world example. So let's take, there is a apartment flat, right? There is a 2 BHK apartment flat in one of the gated community. So we have, right? So let's say there is a 2 BHK flat. So we have hall, we have bedrooms, and also there are some common play areas, function hall, common places. So private means, so bedroom is like a private place, right? only the family members can access. So that means the private means only within the program. Okay, within the same program. Within the same program, it is possible to access. That is private. Protected means within the same program. Within the same program, and also the related programs. Right? Sometimes we have friends and relatives. So when they come to our house, they can come and they can use hall, right? So we ask them to sit in hall. So relatives, friends, everyone, whenever they come, they will use hall in that apartment, right? So that is like a protected. So relatives and friends, they can access that part. So in the same way, so when you have a program, protected means within the same program, and also the related programs. Going forward, we establish parent-child relationship, right? So parent and the child relationship. The visibility within the same program and also the related programs. So that we call as protected. Okay. So public means visibility from any class to any class. Any class to any class visibility we call as public, right? Visibility from any class to any other class within the same organization, right? We work for one of the client. In that client Salesforce organization, from visibility from any class to any other class within the same organization. Okay. So for example, in the gated community, let's say there is a gym. Who can access the gym facility? Only the apartment, only the people who have own apartment in that gated community, only they can go and access. Anyone from that apartment, they can go and access, right? So it's like that. So public means anyone, anything, any element within the organization. From any class to any class, we can access. That is public. So global means not only within the organization, even visibility to the outside of the organization. Okay, even the other platform. Let's say there is a Java platform. From there also they can access if we provide the global visibility. Let's say in the gated community, there is a golf court or some play area. So they are allowing outside people also to access those areas so that they get some revenue for that community and they use for the community facility. So anyone, even outside people also, they can visit and access that area, right? So it's like that. Okay, so global means not only within the Salesforce organization, even outside the Salesforce, even from Java platform, some other platform, if there is a requirement for them to access our program, whatever we develop, for our program, we have to provide the global visibility so that the external platform application, from there also they can access our logic. So these are the different access modifiers. So this deals with the visibility. Who can see what in a program will be decided with this. Okay, so with this understanding, so we have the understanding, basic understanding on a encapsulation concept and abstraction concept. With this, we can start writing a program. Slowly, we also understand about the polymorphism and inheritance, all those concepts. Okay, so now let's write a program. Almost we are ready. So to write the program, so we need to log into Salesforce as a developer. For now, I'll show you here in developer console how we can create, or there are different places where we can write the programs. One of the place is the developer console. Here we can write the program. Otherwise, you can directly go to setup. So left side, search for Apex classes. Click on Apex classes. Directly from here also you can create. Directly from here you can click on new and you can create. Okay, so this is one place where we create, and also otherwise you can make use of the developer console. It's based on our convenience, right? The client needs the functionality and some logic. As a developer, wherever we feel comfortable, we make use of that and we develop. Okay, so one of the ways, directly go to Apex classes and create. This is one place. The other area where we can develop.
Srinivas?
Yeah.
Hello? Yes, so is there any difference between this Apex class and this developer console? Because if we can write the program both, so why these two options have been given?
Developer console is a place where we can write the programs, right? Program is the logic. This is the tool, how we create. So when you create, so let's say you are creating a record in one of the object. How you create that record? You maybe go to click on tab and click on new and create the record, or use some data loader tool to load the data, right? Those are different interfaces where you are creating the record. Here, developer console is a development place where you can create and even not only class, even database commands, web pages, everything we can develop from here. So this is an interface for us to have all those options to create the class and pages and all those things. Right? Apex class is a program. Like that, we create many programs. So what is the confusion here for you?
No, it's clear. Actually, no, it's clear. Actually, I just wanted to know the differences, like why these two pages are given. So it's clear.
No. So I mean, see. So I'm not understanding why you are comparing Apex class and this developer console. So developer console, yeah.
No, this is actually completely new for me. So I just wanted to understand, like, why we have, like, we can do it from here also. We can do from Apex classes also. So why we have been given? Because if we log in, we can execute developer console page also in Apex class.
Let's understand like this. So we are referring the example of the apartment, 2 BHK apartment, right? If you want to construct that apartment, what we need? We need some place, right? There should be a land. So on that land only you can construct the apartment, right? So this is like an area, the platform area where you can, by using this, we can build, right? It is like a tool to build the whatever you want. Okay, so this is a tool which will be useful for us to build the class, whatever we decided to create. This is one kind of tool to develop the Apex class, or this is one kind of tool, right? Here directly you can go here and click on new, and this is one of the option where we can create a program, right? So apart from these things, we also have one more tool. Let's say I want to install one of the IDE and use one of the software where we can do the development in a better way with the better options. We also install some third-party tools, and here also we write the program, and ultimately save into Salesforce. So these are different tools for us available. Using these tools,
Srini, one question.
yeah.
If you write the program in Apex class, can we debug? Do we have the debug option there?
So first of all, when you write the class is like a plan, right? So if you want to call it and debug, already I showed you, right? In the developer console, this is the place where we debug as a developer. So once everything is ready, the program, whatever we develop, how we want to invoke. End user, obviously, they won't come here and debug. End user, all they need is the user-friendly user interface, right? Let's say they open one of the page. Sorry, from one of the page, when they click on a button, that is the point of time it should make the call to our Apex code, whatever we develop, and execute and show the result onto the again on the UI. So that is one area how you execute. Or do you want to execute in the background? Let's say weekly one time, the code should execute and it should do some modifications to the data in the database. That also we do. So we have different types, different areas, how exactly we can invoke the code. So those things we'll understand slowly when we progress with the other topics. Okay. Now in the initial phase, since we don't have any web page, nothing, just we are writing the program. As a developer, quickly how we understand that program is working. So this is the place. Here we also call the class by creating the object and debug how it works. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So the first example, so I'll create here and develop and see. And the next example, so this tool also we can use maybe few examples I'll create from here and show you. But the rest of the most other examples, I'll show you from this by this tool how exactly we do the development and deploy to Salesforce. So since it is too early for us, I'm not again starting directly from here. Okay. So now let's start here. So let's say we are very new, and this is one of the place for us to create the Apex class. So click on new. We are creating one of the Apex class. So now when you create any program, the program can be either a class or interface. We have two encapsulations, either class or interface. The program should start with either class or interface. Now here I am writing a class. So first we have to give class. Maybe you can also increase the font. Space. We also need to construct.
Srini, I'm sorry for interrupting. Is there a difference between class and interface? Like any major
That
difference?
I will slowly, right?
Okay.
At present, I'm trying to explain about the class. Interface, I'll explain. I'll come to that point. Okay. So first, let's write this class, and after that, when I write the interface, you will understand. Okay. So now here, class and the class name also we need to give. The reason is for different purpose, we create a different. We need different plan. Let's say building, individual building is one kind of plan. Apartment building is a different plan. Commercial building maybe different plan based on the area. Different factors, they plan different. They write a different. They plan to construct the corresponding buildings. Right. In the same way here, we might have different reasons to develop different scenarios. So for each scenario, we create one class and so maintain the operations. Okay. So that's why when you create the class, we have to give the name for the class. We have to give some unique name. With that name, no other classes can be created. It's like that. So class, and let's say for us to understand in an easy way. So one of the very basic program. So let's say we have a rectangle. So there is a rectangle, and we know what is the um, length and the breadth of a rectangle. By taking that, we have to calculate area. So what is the area of the rectangle? So what is the perimeter of the rectangle? So those kind of calculations they want in return. They supply length and breadth. For that, we are writing a program. So I'm giving the meaningful name for that. This program is for the rectangle. Okay, so rectangle is the class name I'm giving. The program we start with a block. So this is a block. Okay, so this is a block. In that we write the logic. Okay, now first let's save it. So class starting of the program should be either class or interface. Here we are defining the class, name of the class, and we have to give a block. In that we are going to write the logic of the program. So now let's save it. So quick save means it will save and stay on the same page. Save means it will save and go to the detail page of the class. So now click on quick save. Now it is throwing error. The error whatever we get at the time of saving, we call those errors as compilation error. This is the compile error. If there is a compile error, the program won't save, right? So if you leave it like this and again come back, you don't see it is saved. We lose our changes, right? So when our program will save, only if the syntax is proper, only that time successfully it will save. Otherwise, it won't save. Okay, so there is a syntax error. At the time of saving the error itself, if you see errors, those errors we call as compilation errors. So the error is top level type must have public or the global visibility. So that is the error. Now if you see here, as part of the abstraction, so we discussed that we have different access modifiers. It is talking about, it is saying public or global visibility. So the thing is, when you define a class, and if you don't mention any access modifier, so which kind of visibility you want to provide to this class? If you don't mention anything, the default access modifier is private, right? So the private is the default access modifier. Okay, so that means if you don't mention, maybe if you forget or if you don't mention, the meaning is you are saying it is private. The thing is, when you create a new class, the class should not be private. For sure, the class should be either public or global visibility. But when we can define a class as private, inside the class, again, we can create one more class. In those situations, we can decide whether to make it either private or protected. Okay, so this point is important. For sure, when you click on new and you are creating a new class, the top level class should be always either public or global visibility. We have to mention. If you don't mention, by default, it is private. Right now here, I'm making this one as public. Space class name. Now save it. Now our program is saved. There is no compilation error. Everything is correct and this program is saved. And also when you write the program, we also, to understand few things, maybe to write the requirement why we are creating this class or to explain about something, we need to have the comments. / means comment. Single line commenting. One of the point, the top level type must have public or global visibility. One of the other point, default access modifier is private. If you don't mention anything, by default it is private. So let's say if you want to have the multi-line comment, every time you don't want to give this slash, we give like this. So if you give like this, it is multi-line commenting. So inside that, so whatever you want, you can type. System won't validate for the syntax. Okay, it can be anything, whatever you feel you can write. System won't validate whatever we write inside the comment. Okay, so now only the executable lines, only these lines will be executable. So now inside the class, nothing is mandatory. All we define based on the requirement. If you don't have a requirement, no need to define anything. So here, but our requirement is they are going to supply the length value and the breadth value. Our program should accept those values and apply some logic and give the result. So to accept the length value and breadth value, so what is the kind of data we did? Length means which kind of value they give. They give the number. The number with the decimal they enter or without decimal they give. It might have the decimals also. They might say 10.7, right? It might also include decimal. So we have to decide what is their requirement. Are they going to provide a rounded value, or they are also going to give some decimal values? So let's say they have a requirement to provide the decimal values also. So then, so I'm defining one of the data type, decimal, and the name, right? Let's say I'm giving name as let save, Control S, it will save. In the same way, breadth. So if you are defining the same type, you can say comma, and also you can say breadth, save. So it is saved. So that's it. These are the variables. Maybe for us, right? So we know that these are variables. Maybe since we are starting newly, I'm saying variables, and that is a comment. This won't execute. And here we know that these are the variables. So now we write methods, right? I told that in a program we have variables to hold the data and the methods to perform the actions. Okay, let's define one of the method to calculate the area of a rectangle. Maybe before I write that, I also want to know the result. So what is the value of the length and what is the value of the breadth? Whenever I want to call and know that what is the value of the length and breadth. Yeah, I'm defining one method for that to show what is the data present in the variables, whatever we define. So now I'm defining a public method. This method they can call from other class, even outside this class also. I want to allow to call. That's why I'm defining as public. So when you define a method, for sure, method should have a return type. Without mentioning return type, we cannot define a method. But let's say to show the result, just to show the result, let's say it needs to print the result into log. Directly it is printing the result into log. For us, we don't have any requirement to return some value as a result, right? So when you don't have a requirement, something to return from a method, we have to mention the return type as void, right? So return type should be must, but if you don't have any need to return anything, then we mention as void. Void means we are not returning any value when someone calls this method. That's the meaning of the void. So here I'm giving the name show result. Right? This is the name of the method. So we need to give this function brackets for the method, and we need to give the block. In that block, we write the logic. Okay, so now if you observe here so far, now I'm saving. inside that we have to write the logic. So far I'm saving and the syntax is correct and it is saved. So when you observe here, so always this public or private, everything should be everything in the small letters. Class is also everything in small letter. If you see the class name, we have to start with the capital letter, and each and every word also should start with the capital letter. That is the indentation, right? Really, if you don't follow also, it will work. But as an experienced programmer, we have to follow some standards. Okay, let's say the class name I'm giving like this, my first class, right? Each and every word we are starting with the capital letter and developing. So from day one, right? So try to practice and see how I am writing. I have some experience, and with that I am writing. You see some examples there also. You will see how, and we have to follow in a proper manner. Okay, so here, so that is one thing, and also already we know about this naming convention. Variables, the data type we start with the capital letter. The variable we follow the camel case, right? Starts with lower character, and each and every word in the variable we give as a capital letter. And also one more type of indentation. So people, right, if we don't observe everything, they write like this. If you write like this, it is very, very difficult to understand what is happening. Okay, so in general, whenever we have this block, right, inside the class, we are writing some logic. Make sure to give the tab space. Now here, see, every time I'm pressing tab to give the tab space. And also here, this is one more block. Inside that, if you are writing, right, whenever we have a block inside that, if you are writing some logic, give the tab space and continue. So these things make a habit of doing like this from day one, so that going forward, no need to think about we need to write like this, right? Automatically, you will be starting writing like this. Okay, now inside this, all we need, what is the value of the length and what is the value of the breadth. It should print in the log, right? So the log will be generated when you execute this logic. In the debug log, to print, already we know how we print. System.debug, we use this one. Using this, we print. Maybe while printing, we should know what we are printing, right? I'm just giving like this length, and I'm printing this one. In the same way, I also want to know, so what is the value present in the breadth. Okay, so breadth and breadth variable. So this variable we are referring, right? And if you see, I did not mention any access modifier for this, right? This decimal variable, which visibility, I did not mention. You don't mention, by default it is private, right? Private can be accessible within the class, right? This statement is within this class, it can refer. Okay, so this is the logic, right? Now we have a class. In that class we have some variables and we have a method, and this method, all it is doing is it is printing the values present in the length and the breadth. That's
So,
what it is.
Srini,
Yeah.
access modifiers work for both three components like a class, variables, and methods. All the three components.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
For method, for variable, for the class, going forward we write constructor. For all those things we use the access modifiers.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So now let me also define a method. This time it should calculate the area by taking length value, breadth value. It will do the calculation and it should return the value. So they are expecting the value in return, right? Public. And after doing a calculation, right? Length and breadth both are of type decimal. After calculating, the result also will be decimal only, right? So the return type will be the decimal. We know that. So we are mentioning the return type as decimal, and the method name I'm giving like this. Method name also we follow the camel case, similar to variable. Same naming convention we follow for this also. Okay, so here one of the point is other than void. If you mention any other return type, for sure inside that we have to include the return statement. Return statement is required if you use return type other than void. Now if I try to save, if you see it is saying missing return statement, right? Return statement is required because it is we mention some type. Whenever we mention other than void, system will always expect a return statement, right? I'm using return. So for now I don't know what to return. In general, as a developer, for saving purpose, what we do, since we don't know what to return, just for saving purpose, for the time being I am returning null, right? Null means nothing. So just empty value I'm returning. Later I'll bother about the logic. Okay, now here the area, the formula to calculate the area is length multiplied by breadth. So that is the formula. So now we have to do the calculation, right? So length multiplied by breadth. Again, to store this, we need a variable, right? So to store this, you cannot give like this. If you give like this, the result where you are storing, if you want to refer that result, how we refer? So we have to store in some variable. Okay, so maybe some people, when we start newly, what they'll do, they'll say maybe result. They define that, and into that result, they'll say result is equal to assign, and finally that result they'll return. So that is one way. But the thing is, when I introduce perimeter, that might have different result. So maybe I don't want to use the variable here. So that is also fine. You can also define variables inside the methods. So we call those variables as local variables. Right? You can also say like this, decimal. Maybe this is also a variable, but we are not defining this at the class level. We are defining inside this method. That means the scope, right? So from where we can refer this result only within this block. The scope of this variable is limited to only this block. So when you define outside, the scope will be limited to the entire class. So like that. Okay, so slowly when you practice, you will understand all these things. So this is one way how you store and return. Slowly, once we gain some experience, so it is doing some calculation. Instead of storing into some variable and again returning, we can also do like this. Do the calculation and return. Right? I'm not storing in some intermediate variable. Just do the calculation and return. So that directly the calculated value it will return. Like this also you can do. Right? It's up to you. Slowly when you write, you'll slowly understand how exactly that will work. Okay, let's say I'm following like this. Directly I'm doing the calculation and returning. It will return. So this is the basic class. And in this class, we have variables. We have two methods. One method, which is just printing in the debug log, and one of the method, so which is doing some calculation and returning. So now how we execute
Only
this
one
logic?
question.
Yeah.
So you said show result is a method. We are not doing, we're just printing. Can't we print without method?
So without the method outside, directly inside the class, we cannot write some of the statements. We can only define the variables, we can only define the methods, we can only define the constructors. Writing the statements like this directly here is not, you should not do like that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so only the variables to define we utilize. Okay, the statements should be inside a method, or going forward we discuss about constructor, should be inside a constructor.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So now this is a class, right? Now as a developer, for now we don't have any UI to call this. So as a developer to execute this, so one of the way is go to developer console, click on debug, and click on open execute anonymous. And here I'm going to call that logic and show you how it works. Now this is like a plan, right? This class is like a plan. Just it will also store in the database. Internally, all the classes whatever we develop will store in Apex class. There is a standard object called Apex class. In that object, system store this information. It stores the name and the body of the class and everything. So, but here whatever variables we define and everything, when the system allocate memory, when you create the object. So first let's create the object for this class and see how we can assign values and all those things. Now the syntax to call the class, the syntax to create the object, right? So object creation. If you go back and see, right? So if you remember, we discussed about the non-primitive data types. So I also told that Apex class is also one of the non-primitive data type, right? Here rectangle is the Apex class, and we define a non-primitive variable. And I told that for the non-primitive variables, if you want to assign something, by using new operator, we have to allocate the memory, right? So more or less here also we are doing the same, right? Here, if you want to allocate memory, we use new operator. More or less we are doing the same thing. But when we deal with the class, so here this one we say variable, or people also say object. We are creating an object for the class. For one class, we can create multiple objects, right? Once we have the plan, you can call it again and again, multiple times. So multiple objects you can create and execute.
So Srini, here the object name is rect.
Yeah, that's the meaning.
Okay.
The object is rect. Technically, it is a non-primitive variable, right? Just
Okay.
I'm trying to. So that is what same thing we are following here. So rectangle and name of the variable or object. So as a developer, you can give any name whatever you feel. So let's say I'm giving name as rect1. That's the object name is equal to the right side part. By default, if you don't assign anything, it will be null. Nothing is there. So any non-primitive, if you want to store some information, we have to initiate the memory by using new operator. New, and here whatever we give should be the name of the constructor. So what is the constructor meaning? If you see in our class, I did not define any constructor. So constructor meaning is, in general, the constructor will be having the same name as the class name. So whatever the class name is there, with the same name, system internally maintains a default constructor. For us, really it is not required to define. If you don't define also, how system maintains like this, public, and whatever the class name is there, that should be the name of the constructor. In constructor, no return type. Okay, so but it is not required to define. If you don't define exactly now whatever I typed with that, internally it maintains. So when exactly the constructor will execute, whenever we create the object, that time all the statements of the constructor will be executed. So whenever we create the object as a developer, if we have a requirement to execute some set of statements immediately, I don't want to wait for calling a method and do that. As soon as the object is created, some statements should be executed, and some of the calculation should happen. So when you deal with those kind of situations, we use constructor. Constructor executes only one time when you create the object. Once you create the object, calling the constructor again and again is not possible. Right? How you need to understand constructor? Constructor executes only one time at the time of creating the object. Once we create the object with the object name, again and again, if you want to call constructor, that is not possible. If you want to call the logic again and again, we have to keep that logic in the method. The methods, the statements inside the method can be reusable. With the same object name, again and again you can call. Okay, so this kind of things, just I'm trying to explain. Just now, we don't want constructor. I'm not defining. There is a default constructor. Here, this place is for the constructor. Even though in our class we did not define any constructor, internally system maintains with this. Since we did not define anything, whatever system maintains in that, there are no statements. Nothing will happen. Just it allocate memory. So no statements execute immediately. Now, once we have the object created, by using object, we can call variables, we can call methods. Okay, whenever you want, you can call and see the results. So now here, if you see, these variables are private, right? Private variables directly we cannot access from here. When I say rect1.length, it will throw error because these are private variables we cannot access from here. But what I can do, I'm calling this method which is public, right? Public means even from outside the class I can call. Inside that, there is a logic to refer those variables which are private, right? So now it will print that in the log. We'll see that. So just I'm calling that method. This is one statement. This is the object name dot. Which method you want to call, you can call, so that you will see that result. Right now, only that part I want to call and see what is the result. Okay, so let's execute. Maybe next 2 or 3 minutes we'll close this. Execute, and if you see the value, because we defined variables but we did not assign any value. Length is null and breadth is also null. Right? With the null values, if you call this area, what will happen? Length is null multiplied by null, right? So null multiplied by with null, doing calculations with null is not supported, right? So at runtime, right, at the time of executing, here this is runtime, we are calling that logic, it will throw error. The runtime error we call as exception. Okay, now let me try to call rect1 object name dot, the method name is area. When I call, what it will do, it will try to multiply. We know that length is null and breadth is null, and null into null, it will lead to null pointer exception. You are seeing null pointer exception. That's what will happen. So that's why I want to initialize this length value and breadth value. So one way to initialize is from here. I can initialize from here, right? Directly whenever I define the variable, I can initialize, right? So now, if you see here, if I execute, we don't see any exception. Now we know this will give 0, 0. When you call this one 0 multiplied by 0, 0 it will do, right? But whatever it is returning, we are not storing anywhere. After calling this this won't return anything. We cannot store this into anywhere because that is void. But this is returning decimal, right? The result, again, you can store in some variable, decimal. Let's say result is equal to, if you want to print, let's say at this level I am printing, you can print and see area, and I am printing result and execute. Right? Area is also 0. But how we give values? So I want to give 10, 20. How we give? So for that we don't have time. So what I'll do, we'll discuss that part in our next session. So maybe before our next session, maybe developer console, here in the anonymous block, whatever we type, we cannot save. It won't be permanent. So that's why I'm keeping in the comments. So in our next class, we'll use it and again continue.
Hey,
Yeah.
Srini, how do you see the existing classes?
So after the sessions, I'm going to give access to this organization where I am developing, right? So I'll give access to this account. I think you'll see like this, similar to this. All you need to do, enter your email address and login. Maybe now you might not access if you are new, only joining for development. So once we start with the regular sessions from Monday, everyone, all you need to do, maybe store this URL somewhere and open this and enter your registered email address and log in. So once you log in, if you go to Apex classes, the code will be there. For today, I will send email. This one, whatever we developed, I will send this one in the email. Going forward, I'll give access to this org and you can log in and you can see the code. Okay. Before ending today, any questions, anyone?
When is your next batch or next class?
Monday.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
Yeah, our sessions are from Monday to Friday. And with today, we are done with the demo sessions of the development. And if some of you, if you are joining newly for development, or already whoever completed administration and who did not pay the fee for development, so you have to pay the fee by our next class. Then I'll share the updated meeting link and we can continue. Okay, that is the procedure. So if you want to continue with the development, so please make sure to pay the fee and share the receipt in WhatsApp or maybe through email. I will update your email address in my database and automatically will get the meeting invitation. Okay. We'll continue from Monday. So check your email for the updated meeting link and join with the new meeting.
Srini, one question.
Yeah.
In Apex class, can we execute like we are going to the developer console and then we are executing, right? In Apex class itself, is there any execution? Like, is there a place to execute?
No.
Okay.
Okay. We have to initiate the call from somewhere. So one of the places is this place, right? Let's say if you don't like to call from here, there is one more way called a test class. We write a test class, right? So it needs a different syntax. Maybe in our next session I'll explain. When you keep the logic here, whatever we are doing, same thing we keep inside the test class. Test classes we can run. When you open the test class, you will see a button called run. So that way that will run and it will give the result.
So
We should have base.
So test class is also written in the Apex class.
Test class is also a Apex class, but
Okay.
how system knows it is a test class? For that there is a syntax. Due to that syntax, it will enable one button here, run test. So when you run test, automatically it will run and it will give the result. No need to go to developer console for that.
Okay.
Yeah, so all those things slowly when we progress, you will be knowing. Okay. Yeah, any other questions? Okay, we'll continue on Monday. Thank you.